Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today got some good news that today we're going to be doing some benchmarks. Well, talk about the benchmark of the Samsung Galaxy A15, the current device that I use, and we are going to be showing it just how powerful the phone is. And no wonder why I'm able to play certain games, I would say. So I'm gonna go to my history here. I saved up the benchmarks. 687 single core score, multi-core 1640. Wow, that's pretty high. That's pretty good. Let's look at some other stuff here. The inter gear score 707. Wow. Floating point score 651. File compression 589. Navigation 628. The PDF renderer, it is a it's a 844 megapixels. 19.5. Libraries 755. 767. Wait, 765. Text processing 689. Wow. Okay. Looking pretty good, I would say. This is pretty good. HDR 764 megapixels. Ray tracer 716. Structure information 699. Okay. All right. So this is the score. Wow. This is pretty good on the CPU. This is a 26%, I would say. Wow. That's just pretty good. Wow, look at that. That's pretty high. Yep, this is a flagship level phone, I would say. Compared to the other devices like the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, this phone cannot compete with those phones because those phones are more powerful. But I'm still on the flagship level of this phone, which is the A15. This is pretty good. I would say you're fast enough to run Genshin Impact, Withering Waves, and probably some other games out there, but you can't run Zenless Zone Zero on this device because the RAM is only 6 gigs of RAM, and you need 8 gigs of RAM in order to run that game. So technically, this phone is a 6 gigs of RAM maximum. So, but other than that, wow, look at these other phones, man. S24 Ultra is already maxed out. That's crazy. Wow, these phones are fast. Yeah, these are very powerful phones. Oh, wow. This is pretty good for the A15 to have this much. Wow. I mean, that's pretty high still. Alright. This is the single core for the CPU, and the multi-core for the CPU is 1640, which is really high on the CPU, which is pretty good. That's still pretty high. I'm still on the scale of the flagship level. Wow. For the A15. Google Pixel 7 is up there. Wow. Pretty good. S20 FE5G is up there. A54. Poco X3 Pro. Alrighty, we have more. Now, this was the CPU's maximum. We're going to look at the GPU. So the GPU benchmark was 1,243, which is a 12% on the GPU performance increased, I would say. Maximum, I would say, that it just reached up to. Check out this stuff here. Okay. So the background blur is 439, face detection 272, horizontal detection 1,847 megapixels. Holy cow. Edge detection 2,531 megapixels. Dang, that's high. Whew. Wow. Gaussian blur. Never heard of that one. It's 1,331 megapixels. Featuring matching 405. Stereo matching 3,808. Holy macro. That's, woo, wow, that's high. And the particle physics, which is the FPS, the highest FPS on this phone can run up to 218.9 FPS. That is high. That is very high for this phone to run that that amount of FPS is high. 218.9 is high because most phones can't really reach. I would say the phones that are not flagship probably can't reach that high unless they have like a 120 hertz or something, maybe manageable, but I don't know. Most phones that are not flagship can't reach this high. I would say flagship level phones are technically the better phones, and also the flagship phones that are above flagship are probably better, but phones that are not flagship at all are just not going to be as powerful as the flagship phones. Like the A15 is already a flagship phone. It's a flagship level 6 phone, with a 6 nanometer core. Which means this phone runs a different type of processor, which is the MediaTek Dimensity 6100 Plus. So that's the processor that this phone runs up to. But this score is really high. Let's see where I'm at on the GPU scale. Oh yeah, so that's the 1,243. That's still pretty high. I'm still on the scale, but it's quite lower than most of these other phones, but I'm still on the scale though. I'm still on the flagship level. Even though this GPU is not as high, I'm still on the scale though, which means this GPU is still powerful. Just not as powerful as these phones, but you know, I'm still on the scale. That's still pretty good. Yeah, I mean, this isn't bad. I mean, what do you guys think of this score on the A15? I mean, it's pretty good, but there's other phones out there like, you know, Z Fold 5 and S23 Ultra and stuff like that. Like, all these other phone scores are just really much higher than this phone, but I mean, technically this is a flagship level phone for the A15. I'm not saying it's not, but it's on the scale of all the other phones, just not as powerful because it's not leagues above other phones, not even close, but I'm still on the scale, which means this phone is very powerful enough to run most of the games that you currently want to play. Especially if you want to play Withering Waves on the A15, you definitely can. Even on the 4 gigs of RAM version, which is the 6 gigs of RAM, you can still run Wuthering Waves. You just can't run it at max graphics, unless depending on the server that you're running in Wuthering Waves. Like if your server is like really good with very good ping, you probably could push this phone all the way to max graphics on the A15 on Wuthering Waves if your server is good. So yeah, I'm not saying you can't run Wuthering Waves on high graphics. I just, you know, you just have to be warned about it, I would say, because this phone does heats up, but if you know how to set up your phone's performance in the right way where your phone can't overheat so much. But to be honest, this phone has a 20% temperature reduction, so it has 20% of that. But other than that, like this phone is pretty good for a 15 to be this high. I mean, comparison to other phones, I know all these other phones here are way faster than the A15, but don't get me wrong, a flagship level phone like the A15 and others that are probably in the category of flagship are still pretty good phones. I'm just saying, like, I understand like why a lot of people buy the A15, because I saw some videos for the A15 and it showed that a lot of people actually bought the A15, Samsung Galaxy A15. A lot of people bought this phone and it was on sale for a good price, and people just went went ham and just buying this phone because it's a flagship level. Like, a cheap phone for mid-range phones to be this powerful on this scale is pretty good, and I understand why people, bought this phone. Um, a lot of people are still probably buying the A15, but not as much as it was before when it first came out. But to be honest, the A15, I understand why people bought this phone though. If you're an Android user, the A15 is a really good phone for you to be playing certain games on it. I think it just depends on which certain games, because it depends on your RAM, and I know mobile games run by RAM sometimes. So if, let's say, the game minimum requirement should be 8 gigs of RAM for a certain game. If your phone doesn't have 8 gigs of RAM, you only have like 6 gigs of RAM, then you're not going to be able to run that game because that RAM is, you're not at 8 gigs of RAM. But I'm just saying, like, for Zenless Zone Zero, you need minimum requirement of 8 gigs of RAM in order to run the game. Unfortunately, my phone is not at 8 gigs of RAM. Mine is a 4 gigs of RAM, which is 6 gigs of RAM maximum. So I can't run Zenless Zone Zero on this phone at all for the A15 because I don't have that other version of it. But as you know, the 4 gigs of RAM on this device for the A15 is still really good. I mean, look at the score. I mean, that's still pretty good. I'm still flagship level. Let's go. Like, I understand, like, hey, everybody doesn't want the most powerful phone, which I quite understand. But as long as your phone is still on the scale, that's what matters. I mean, let's be honest. Like, look at all these other phones, bro. The Google Pixel 7, look at that. That's pretty good. Snapdragon 7 Gen 2, pretty good. 8 Gen 1, pretty good. Like, look at these phones, bro. Look at the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5. Look at that. That's high for the 8 Gen 2. Wow. Pretty high on the GPU. What do you guys think of the A15? I think it's a very good device. To be honest, and that's the reason why I bought this device for a reason, because I think this phone was very powerful, and technically it is very powerful, but not as powerful as these phones down here, of course. But I'm still on the scale, like I said before. Like, at least I'm there on the scale, and not out of the scale, because that's different. But you know, I just believe that, if your phone is too powerful, is kind of demanding for a phone. Well, sort of, to some people, not a lot of people though. Some people don't care about how powerful the phone is, but some people do, some people don't. But I would say you just need to know about it. That's all. That'll probably be what I say. Just need to know about it. But yeah, see you guys in the next video. Peace out. I will stop from here. Yeah, see you guys in the next video. Peace out.